Friends, we're going to begin in a moment, but if you don't have one of these or one of our program inserts, I encourage you to please get one from the entryway. We will be using them this evening. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Some of you have seen me down on the lower level for services most of the time, but we've been discovering that in truth, this is the microphone that I need to be using until we get something much better than this. So I'm going to be up here. My heart is down there with you, and I want to invite you to begin to enter this space, not physically, because you've already done that, good job, but spiritually. What are you bringing with you to these four walls this evening? What do you bring to the shores of Shabbat? Do you have cares of the week, worries, questions, concerns, hopes? We hold them all and put them to the side for this Sabbath day. We enter into a sacred time, a rarefied kind of time, a time out of time. I invite you to take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you want. Really begin entering into this day of Shabbat. We begin our service with the singing of Hine Ma Tov on page 10. How good, how beautiful it is when we can dwell together as family, as one unified whole, as one community. It's my pleasure to call forward Kelly Hudak and Ed Rosenfeld to help us with our opening blessings for Shabbat, the candles, the Kiddush, the Motzi. We are on page 2.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. We join together, go ahead. We join together in the Kiddush, which can be found on page 5 of your Siddur. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kadsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit Ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim Ki vanu v'acharta ve'otanu ki dashta mikol ha'amim V'shabbat kadshecha b'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat l'chaim. There we go.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. So Ed and Kelly, I'm going to invite you to have a little bit of challah. Anybody who else who wants challah can come get some a little later. We're going to take a moment now to do something that is part of our welcoming of Shabbat here at KI. We're about to welcome the Sabbath bride into our midst. Thank you, Kelly and Ed. And that's with the singing of Lecha Dodi. But before we do that, we're going to welcome and greet one another. So I want to encourage you to stand up, say Shabbat Shalom to those around you, perhaps even cross the aisle and meet someone you haven't met before. And we'll come back together in a few moments. So you walked in too late for me to say hello. Hi. Friends, let's join back together at our seats. I want to invite you to be seated. We are on page 20. Hi, President Eric. We're on page 20, and we're going to be singing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. On our final verse, we rise, and with Mike opening the door to let her in, we welcome in the Shabbat bride by turning and facing the door, and we join together with the choir. Lecha Dodi. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Yai, lie, ya, lie, lie, yai, lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Barechu et Adonai, Hamevorach, Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai, Hamevorach. Leolam, Leolam Vaed. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due, now and forever. Yai lai, ya lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai 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 lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. We continue at the top of page 30. We're going to go about halfway down the page in the Hebrew, and then we're going to turn to the insert that you received in your handout tonight with Roll Into Dark. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chochma poteach sha'arim Uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem, barakia kirtsono. Roll into dark, roll into light, night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light, night becomes day, day turns to night. Borei yom valayla, golel or mipnei choshech, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Roll into dark, roll into light, night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light, night becomes day, day turns to night. Borei yom valayla, golel or mipnei choshech, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. Together on the top of page 33. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. You may be seated. We continue with the Ve'ahavta, page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meotecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha vishinantam levanecha vidibarta bam bishivtecha bevetecha uvlachtecha vaderech uvshochbecha uvkumecha ukishartam leot al yadecha vehayu letotafot bein einecha Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. On page 39, we read each paragraph responsively. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt, we were delivered. At Sinai, we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again, we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Yapali kamocha baili madonai mi kamocha nedar bakodesh norati. Ki fada Adonai et Yaakov, ugealo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chaim, ufros alenu sukat shlomecha, v'taknenu be'etza tova milfanecha, v'hoshienu l'ma'an shemecha. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. We continue on page 44 with Yismachu. Yismachu. Rise for the Amidah, which can be found on page 46. Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you. Adonai sifata tiftachu fi hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Vekonei Hakol Vezocher Chaste Avot V'Imahot Umevi Gula Livnei V'Nehem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Zrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechaye HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofeh Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot Umidol Melach Melech Meimit Umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'aman Atah L'Hachayot HaKol Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh HaKol Atah Kadosh Ukadoshim b'chol yom yahalalu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. You may be seated. On the top of page 55, feel free to join with me or just to listen. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. At the top of page 57, Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu bi'amcha Yisrael, utfilatam be'ahava tqabel, utehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha, Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirad na'avod. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands. You are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. The next prayer that is part of our Amidah is called the Hoda'ah, which means the prayer of giving thanks. And it's our custom not necessarily to read the entirety of the prayer as it's written in the book, but instead to take a moment and think individually amongst ourselves within your own mind of things for which you're grateful. It's maybe something you think about all the time that you're grateful for, or it could be something that's newly occurring to you now, that's something that deserves gratitude. It could be something from this week, or something from years ago, or something that is a hope for the future. The very first words of this prayer are Modim anachnu lach, which means we give you thanks. And it's our custom, I'm going to in a moment invite anybody who'd like to share what you're grateful for to please share that out loud and briefly, because then I need to repeat it so folks at home can hear what's going on. And then we'll say together after each offering, Modim anachnu lach. If you don't want to share something aloud, that's perfectly fine as well. And in fact, it's perfectly fine for nobody to share anything. That would be all right too, but it's an opportunity. Eric.
Just moved this evening to have sat in this sanctuary where there were 10 or 12 of us here for services. And I'm just moved by our community. And that we can come together and celebrate Shabbat together.
Eric is grateful that our community can grow and come together and celebrate Shabbat together. Modim anachnu lach. Mike.
I am thankful for the camaraderie that was shared by the Shabbat friends tonight and the once a month, every month that we get together.
Barbara, that's your ad for the... Okay. So Mike is grateful that Shabbat Friends was able to come together tonight. So this is a group of anybody in the congregation, really, who would like to come and bring your own dinner once a month on Friday night. And it'll be before services, and you can just enjoy and kibitz and be with others. Everybody's always welcome. Thank you. Carl is... all of us being together. Modim anachnu lach. Yes.
I'm grateful
Linda.
to Donna and Ellen Salinger, who have been working so hard for Shabbat Out of the Box tomorrow to create great music
So Linda is grateful for all the work that Alan Salinger and Donna Fisher have put into creating tomorrow night's program, Shabbat Out of the Box, Sing for Your Supper. It's going to be a lot of fun. Modim anachnu lach. Ruth.
I'm grateful that I got to leave school early and that I go to such a good school.
Ruth is grateful that they got to leave school early and that they go to such a good school. Modim anachnu lach. Barbara.
I'm grateful that two congregations are working together to share the Scholar in Residence in March.
Barbara is grateful that KI is sharing our Scholar in Residence program where we're going to be inviting Dr. Lewis Gordon, a world-renowned philosopher, that we're sharing that Scholar in Residence opportunity with Bris Shalom. Modim anachnu lach. Yes. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So your friend is Ziv, is recovered and is going to be returning to his post in the Israeli military next week. Modim anachnu lach. Yes, Donna. Donna is grateful for friends. Modim anachnu lach. Hi, Elaine.
I'm grateful that I now have, this past week, my great-great-niece was born.
So Elaine is excited and grateful that her great-great-niece was born this week. Modim anachnu lach. This is a little thing, and, it's an opportunity to embarrass my child. But the shirt that Ruthie is wearing tonight was stitched and made by my grandfather in his shirt factory. And I've had it for many, many years. I've never worn it, but tonight Ruth just put it on, and it's such a special thing to have something passed down through the generations like that. Modim anachnu lach. So, if you didn't say anything out loud, that's fine. But did you have something over here? I didn't check. Okay, you're welcome to just hold in your mind the thing that you're grateful for. Folks at home, you can email me during the week if you'd like me to include something. But I invite you to hold in your mind something for which you have gratitude this Shabbat, as we say together, Modim anachnu lach. We pray silently. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimeru amen. On the heels of this prayer for peace that we sing every Shabbat, our whole long lives, if we're lucky, we share a more poignant, more pointed prayer for peace in Israel right now. You have a laminated handout that should have been given to you when you entered, entitled Peace, Please by Rabbi Karen Kadar. I invite you to read this along with me or just reflect upon it as I read it. We gather together in faith and with hope to pray for peace and for the safety of the people of Israel and innocent victims amongst the Palestinian people. Help us, O Holy One, and protect us in our hour of need. Touch our hearts, lest they be hardened with despair. Guide our thoughts, lest they are overcome with fear. Bring healing to the wounded, strength to those in mourning, courage to those in fear, wisdom to those who lead. Yedid Nefesh, beloved one, reveal yourself and fill the world with your light. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Be quick, God of love, for the time has come. Have mercy upon us, Eternal One of peace. We join with the choir in the singing of Shalu Shalom Yerushalayim, which can be found on the insert that you were handed when you entered the room. Shalu Shalom, Shalu Shalom, Shil Shalayim, Yishlayu Havayich, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Smichad Geulatenu, Venomar Amen, Amen. May the source of peace grant abundant peace to our world soon, so soon in our day. We also pray for healing, for wholeness, for shalom, for those in our community, in our midst, who are in need of healing of body, of mind, and of spirit. This Shabbat, we think of Robert Alexander, Mac Beeson, Gershona Binyamina Batsara Valevi, Barry Cohen, Robbie Cohen, Chaya Shena Dinka Bat Esther Basha Vayosef, Ellery Einstein, David Eiskowitz, Rivka Elka Bat-Root, Marianne Gardosky, Francis Gentlecore, Don Goldman, Rachel Goldstein, Jamie Gordon Rodriguez, Mikhail Gordon, Harav Rachel Bat-Fruma, Emily Hochstedler, Nick Jelinski, Diane Levine, Wilburn Nichols, Phyllis Ostroff, Felice Price, Lois Ratner, Shauli Rosenberg, Dr. Norm Sarachek, Michael Scarce, Susan Scarce, Peggy Stetner, Ethel Zager, Ziv, and Marcy Zolkos. I invite you to add any names to this list, the names of anyone for whom you're praying for healing tonight. With hope for healing in our hearts, we join together in the singing of the Mishaberach, page 253. Mishaberach Avoteinu Mikor HaBracha Le'amotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. May we soon know a refuah shlema, a complete healing, soon in our day, as together we say, Amen. So, last week, we started the book of Shmot, the book of Exodus, in our reading of the Torah. And so we are not that far in. We're on the second parsha, the second Torah portion of the book of Shmot. And this is really in the meat of the story leading up to the Exodus, when the Israelites are going to be freed from slavery in Egypt. Now, one thing that's interesting to me about Genesis and its jump to Exodus is, as I've mentioned to many of you before, Genesis seems to be a story about a family. It turns into kind of like a big family, but it's a story about a family and their interpersonal relationships and interpersonal challenges as they move their way through the world. But now we're in Exodus, and Exodus is a story about a nation. It's the transition from the family of Jacob becoming the nation of Israel, which of course begins, oddly enough, in Egypt. And I say oddly enough because, usually when you talk about the establishment of a nation, you think of like a glorious, moment in the sun. We actually start from pretty humble beginnings. We don't start from, winning a great war. We start from being slaves. And so even though we are a nation, one thing that is appealing or interesting to me about the book of Exodus is that it's also, much like Genesis, an opportunity to think about the personal lives of some of the people who are featured in this story. You know, we learn all about, you know, what did Abraham do and what did he think and what did Sarah do and what happened with Ishmael, and it's all this interpersonal family stuff, and we tend to think of like Exodus, this is the nation, it's the nation, but we actually get a very interesting window into the life of one particular figure. Who's the major figure in the book of Exodus? Moses. He's actually the major figure in the Torah, many would argue, because the Torah actually, if you think about it, goes from the creation of the world. Like kids, I always just say to kids, what's in the Torah? And they say, oh, it's prayers. A lot of them say there's prayers, which is technically sort of true. And they say rules, great. Stories, what stories? The stories of the Jewish people. And I say, okay, that's true, but that's actually a longer story. So I clarify, of course, that it's the creation of the world through the death of Moses. So this is really, in a lot of ways, Moses's book. So here we are, and last week we know that Moses was rescued from the Nile, where his mother had put him, you know, in a basket that she had waterproofed, and he ended up being adopted by the Pharaoh's daughter. The rabbis call her Batya. We don't really know her name, but that's what the rabbis think her name was. And she raises him as her own in the palace. And he's raised as an Egyptian prince. And there's some scholarship that says that he actually was, because his own mother was his nursemaid, that she kind of taught him about being Jewish. It's not entirely clear. There's conflicting scholarship on this, conflicting concepts that the rabbis share. But Moses ends up needing to flee. Does anyone remember why Moses flees Egypt? He's an adult now. Why does he flee Egypt?
Yeah, I killed the guard that was.
Right, he killed a guard who was hitting a slave. He was like moved by the humanity of this slave and thought, why is this guard doing this? And anyways, the matter became known to Pharaoh, and he thought he was going to get in trouble, so he ran away. And he runs away to the country of Midian. And there's some history around like Midian being kind of like a co-nation with Israel. Like there's a lot of similarities, at least at this point. And he ends up marrying the daughter of the Midianite priest, Zipporah. Then what does he do with his life now that he's a married man? What does he do? Barbara. He's a shepherd, right? He's a shepherd. And so he has a lot of days where he gets up and I'm just imagining, but he gets up and he puts on clothes and he eats something, and then he goes and gets the sheep or the goats or whoever he's herding, and he sits with them all day. And then he brings them back home, and he does the same thing the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Moses has many, many decades of this, day in and day out. And I want you to think about when you have a time in your life, maybe you're in it now, maybe you have been in it, maybe you remember it, or maybe it's coming, when you're kind of just doing your day-to-day thing and you don't really feel like what you do matters in any kind of big way. It matters to someone you know, it matters to people you care about. I'm not talking about like, you know, doing things that no one cares about, but just like in sort of the large scheme of world events, yeah? Now, the amazing thing about the book of Exodus is that it's all about how small choices in the lives of individuals who have many, many boring days can actually change the course of history. It's really hard to keep our heads around that, because usually it's very good to watch the movie and like go backwards and say, oh, there's that one thing that that character did, and look where it led, and yay, we have a wonderful ending. We don't get to see that ending as quickly as we do in a movie. But Exodus is showing us, not just through Shiphrah and Puah, who we talked about last week, the midwives who saved the Israelite babies, but also through Moses, that our boring, mundane lives, when they are boring and mundane, which is not necessarily always the case, do not suggest that the things that we do in our lives are not going to matter. This weekend, we celebrate the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And there's a lot of comparisons people have made to him, between him and Moses. You know, his famous speech, I've been to the mountaintop. You know, he's seen the promised land and he's not going to go over into it. This man knew his Bible. That comes directly from the scenes at the end of the book of Deuteronomy when Moses is standing on the edge of the promised land, knowing he's not going to enter it. And it was a tragic reason for Dr. King, I think much more so than we like to think of Moses' death. And he's not going to enter the promised land. But he's brought the people all the way to that mountaintop. But we're not there yet. We're not at the book of Deuteronomy. We're not all the way to the promised land. But we are here with Moses herding sheep. And God, you know, he sees the burning bush and he starts talking to God. And I'm skipping over that because that's just not what we're focusing on. It's a really interesting scene. But God says, I want you to go and I want you to free my people from Pharaoh. And what does Moses say? What would you say, Elaine? He said, but I don't speak well. What do we think that means? So some scholars, the rabbis think that he stutters, which is interesting. It's actually a beautiful, it can create some beautiful readings when thinking about what it means to have a disability and to also have abilities that are valuable in the community beyond the thing that you think is a disability. I'm just a shepherd. Okay, so he was humble. He was thinking like, I'm not the right guy. And he also, he didn't see himself as a leader in that way. He couldn't imagine that people would listen to what he had to say. And yet he spoke. He ended up speaking because God says to him, what are you, crazy? Who gives you speech? Who gives you eyes to see? All the power that anybody has for talking or speaking or listening, that all comes from me. So if I say that you're going to go and do this, you should be going and do this. You should be going to do this. It's like kind of a little bit of a chutzpah that is funny. Like look who thinks he's so small. Or look who thinks he's nothing. I want to share with you a quote from Dr. King that Alex, our educational director and rabbinic intern, shared with me this week and with some of you. It's not his most famous that I've ever heard, but I thought it reminded me of Moses. It also reminds me of this time where we are positioned in the course of history. As Dr. King once said, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Now, I think behind that is an expectation that the reader would be a person who wants to have a life that means something important or means something that matters. Moses was living a life that didn't feel like it was going to matter a lot. And so when he's approached by God, he doesn't realize, it's almost like he's like, are you talking to me? Because I'm just a shepherd. All of us are shepherds. All of us have moments when we're bored or distracted or doing things that we don't think are effective, spinning our wheels, herding sheep yet again, just like you did 50 days ago and 50 days in the future. But this question, what are you doing for others, is the kind of question that leads us to do the things that become the history of a people. They're the little small acts, like Shifra and Pua did last week, that really can change the course of a story. But the thing about it is, we often don't get to see that big of a picture. Sometimes, as Dr. King said, the arc of history, what? But it's long. And the idea there, I love that idea, because sometimes it looks to us like it's not really going to get there. It's going to get there because it's a very, very long arc. So you could say something to somebody this week, or do something for someone this week that could have repercussions throughout that person's life. And I have camp counselors and teachers who I have these very, very specific memories. I'm sure many of you do too. And they don't remember it at all. And I have students and campers and kids I've worked with who remember stuff vividly that I've said to them that one time. All of us have this chance every single day to follow Dr. King's words. And like Moshe, to take a first step. It may be a long arc, but freedom will come. The slaves will cross the sea and become a people. Shabbat Shalom. So it's my pleasure to call forward Martina Obensky to offer some greetings and announcements on behalf of our board. Welcome to the Bima, Martina. That sort of rhymes.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I'd like to thank you for joining us in the sanctuary and tuning in online. Thank you to our choir, Karen, and all who participated in the service this evening. And a very special happy birthday to Carol. Weekly Torah study with Rabbi Tornberg continues. Join us either tomorrow morning at 9:30 or on Thursdays from 10:30 to noon to gain some insight on how to stand for Jewish values for Israel and Jews. Now, if you're joining us for tomorrow's Sing for Your Supper event, please remember to bring your membership card and your picture ID for security purposes. Next week, our Shabbat service will be led by the Fall Adult Hebrew class. Having been a member of that group many years ago, I can assure you that these students work real hard to master their Torah portion and appreciate the support that you will give them by attending the service. Save the weekend of March 15th through the 17th for our Scholar in Residence. And to paraphrase a popular mantra, we are KI. And as such, we have a variety of learning opportunities for you. So please check out our handbook, our handout that you got tonight, the website, or Let's Stay Connected for further information and registration. And finally, following the benediction, please join us across the hall for a little nosh and community. Shabbat Shalom.
So, a little while ago, President Eric and I were talking about the worship service and how, maybe there were a few people who didn't know everything about the worship service, and that it might be a nice thing to sort of introduce some ideas that may be new to some people as we go through worship on various Shabbats. So I want to invite you to turn to page 282. I promise this will not be as long as the sermon. We are going to be rising for Aleinu in a moment, but I wanted to look at the text of the Aleinu, and I'm wondering if someone would read for us. There's two different versions, so let's read the top of the page in English, and I'll bring the microphone to somebody. Raise your hand if you're going to be the person. I'll do it if no one else did. Ruth. The high school student reads in front of the class all the time.
I do not.
Well, you're asked to, I bet.
The English?
Yeah.
Let us now praise the sovereign of the universe and proclaim the greatness of the Creator who spread out the heavens and established the earth, whose glory is revealed in the heavens above, and whose greatness is manifest throughout the world. You are our God, there is none else. Therefore we bow in awe and thanksgiving before the one who is sovereign over all, the holy and blessed one.
Okay, and then one more thing. I'm going to have Ruth continue. On the next page, actually 2 pages from now. So, nope, even further. Okay, so page 287, there's the ending of the prayer, which we skip to as our custom at KI. Would you read the English for that, please?
Thus it has been said, Adonai will be sovereign over all the earth. On that day, Adonai will be one, and God's name will be one.
Thank you very much. Does anybody know what the Aleinu is about? Any? Okay, so here's the big idea. I'm not going to give you all the ideas about Aleinu because it's late, but here's the big idea about Aleinu. So the worship service is actually structured in this gorgeous way where we move from the idea of creation through revelation, that is through the giving of the Torah, and towards redemption. Okay, so this is the idea of Jewish history. Jewish history, one way to conceptualize it religiously is that it goes from the creation of the world toward the end of days, the redemption of the world. It's a straight line structure. And there's lots of ways to think about time. This is one Jewish way to think about time. So the world gets created, and ultimately, we're going to get to a time when the world is whole and at peace. And the way the Aleinu talks about it is that means that everybody's going to have a deep sense of God's presence, and God's oneness is going to be evident in all hearts and all experiences. It's sort of a way of expressing a messianic era. And so we start by thanking God for, creating the light and darkness and all the things that God creates. And we move through the story of the redemption from Egypt, and also through the discussion of the revelation of Torah. But ultimately, we end our service with an idea that there's a place we're trying to go. This is not the past that the Aleinu is about. It's about the future that we aim to create through our work of justice and tikkun olam. I invite you to rise for Aleinu, page 282, and it's my pleasure to call forward Mike Miller and Barry Cohen to open our ark. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol latet gedula leotzer breshit shelo asanu kugoye ha'aratzot velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 287. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. You may be seated. Temple by Jennifer Rudick Zunikoff. May the day arrive when every life is a treasure, when every death is a devastation. That is the day that the burial of any one child in any one land will bring forth the great cry, an anguish so complete that the following day, everyone who has ever created a weapon will now build an instrument. This is the day the Levites will play, the day each child will be a celebration, the day the world will be the temple. Our thoughts turn to those who've departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. We also call to mind the 6 million of our martyred brethren who perished in the Shoah, and all those who gave their lives in defense of Jewish ideals here in the United States, in Israel, and around the globe. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be a blessing. In a moment, I'm going to share the names of those we are remembering specifically in the Knesset Israel community tonight. And if I share the name of somebody for whom you're saying Kaddish, we invite you to rise and remain standing so that we might acknowledge your loss and envelop you in our love and support. If you're not comfortable doing so, that's fine as well. We remember those whose families are in the Shloshim period, the first 30 days of mourning. Eugene Denitz, Bobby Hamill, Phyllis Krasnow. We also call to mind those whose yahrzeits occurred this week. Nathan Bagoff, Mary Ann Cochran, Cynthia Dunn, Herbert Fagenbaum, Leonard Fisselman, Albert Feinstone, Ben Getz. I'm sorry? No, it doesn't. I apologize. This is from this is from the wrong week. Thank you. And I apologize for the improper recitation. I know that it's no small thing. So we are thinking, if we can return to the Shloshim names, Joseph Bergstein, Eugene Denitz, and Bobby Hamill. And we link their names to the names of those whose yahrzeits do occur this week. Nathan Orrit, Hilda Blumberg, Nathan Brownstein, Minnie Campbell, Sarah Davis, Jonathan Dicker, Hyman Fogelman, Elizabeth Gordon, Jerome Guggenheim, Joan Harrison, David Hirsch, George Hirsch, Howard Israel, Joseph Kahn, Nathan Landau, Sidonia Leibovitz, Sandra LeSavoy, Rose Lesher, May Elizabeth Mauser, Jeannie Morrison, Henry Phillips, Gerald Salmon, Sylvia Samuels, Robert Schwartz, Jack Shapson, Henrietta Siegelbaum, Sarah Silverberg, Lillian Spector, Rita Strook, Zerlene Sussman, Manasseh Ullman, and Ernestine Erkin. I invite you to add any names to this list, the names of anyone for whom you're saying Kaddish tonight. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be an abiding blessing. We join together in the words of Kaddish on page 294. We rise. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei rabbah, v'yalma divrach kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach leolam u'la'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shemed, kudusha, brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel and all the world, and comfort to all who are bereaved. As together we say, amen. You may be seated. As Martina mentioned, I hope you'll make your way over to the multipurpose room so we can greet and kibitz with one another, as well as enjoy some wonderful treats. Our closing song tonight can be found on page 11, Ele Chamda Libi. Ele Chamda Libi, Husana ve'el natitalem, Ele Chamda Chamda libi chusana ve'ona titalem. Ele chamda libi chusana ve'ona titalem. Ele chamda libi chusana ve'ona tita. Ele chamda libi chusana ve'ona titalem. Ele chamda libi chusana ve'ona titalem. We rise for our closing benediction. O Holy One, the power who makes for salvation, we look back to the first beginnings of your world with wonder, and we feel you walking beside us as we take our tentative steps forward toward the time of redemption. The arcing path toward that time is a long one. Please, like fire in the desert, like a cloud by day, be with us on the journey. Shabbat Shalom.